Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hosts Melanie Johnson and Jenn Foster are the owners of Elite Online Publishing. They're both Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling authors. We're really glad you're here because this podcast was designed for you. Meet industry experts that share their secrets and strategies. Get successful results for your business in money, relationships, health, and your life. Each episode is going to inspire you to take action towards reaching your greatness.
Hi, everyone. This is Melanie Johnson. Thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Jenn Foster. How you doing, Jenn?
Doing great. It's a wonderful day today.
All right. We've got some serious stuff to talk about. And when I say serious, that means money serious. So if you've been wondering how to manage your numbers and increase your profits without losing your mind, I know if you're running a small business, even if you're running a household or you're running a bigger business, it can make you crazy. You feel like you can't catch up. You can't do it. So we have Aimee LaLiberte with us today. She is an expert at that. And she's going to tell us how to keep our sanity and be on top of our numbers at the same time. Hi, Aimee. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So tell us, Aimee, how you got into the finance world and how you became a virtual CFO.
Sure. So I grew up with this fascination with money, mostly with like how people make it and then how they spend it, but not really understanding like all the fine tuning things in between. And so when as I like finished up college and everything, I realized that I wanted to have money somewhere in my career in terms of like, it was something that was on the forefront. So I ended up spending the first part of my career working in colleges and universities, helping them do like design fundraising programs, not only from like a front end perspective, but also in the back end. Like, how do you create financial goals that create transformation for your organization? And over the course of that time, I developed all of these skill sets that understood both the front and the back end of any business. And then when it came time for me to realize kind of like what is my second act, if you will, for my career, I realized I wanted to start my own business because I knew that this was something that was missing in the world of small business. And so I started out and I made it very easy. And I was like, bookkeeping is what I was going to do. And then as time went on, I realized the expertise of like the analysis and the forecasting and all of that was really in an elevated approach. And so that's where the virtual CFO and fractional CFO services got built in. And that's where I am now. So I work with 6 and 7 figure business owners who are looking to have an intentional relationship with their money. And that goes with like the tactical stuff, which is like the bookkeeping, the forecasting, profit first, but it's also the mindset work. So I'm a certified coach that helps with the growth mindset that all entrepreneurs need in order to scale and create any financial goal they desire.
Well, let's start with the mindset, because that's usually always the building block. If you have the right mindset, then you can build the rest. You have the momentum. What is the right mindset?
I think so I actually think that there's like a 2-prong approach to it. I don't think it's like the mindset comes with then the system, because oftentimes people show up to me with the thought of I'm terrible at money. There's these very limited beliefs that they have around their relationship with money. And largely it's because my business owners are coming to me. They're largely service-based providers, and they decided to have a business because they wanted to deliver the service and to create the thing. They didn't do it because they were really excited about like bookkeeping. And so when they don't like, and then like what they do is they create like an avoidant relationship with their money. So when they're coming to me, it's like their thought is like, I'm not good at money. And what the antidote is that mindset and a very simple system for them to be able to either like do on their own if they're just starting out, or to have it outsourced with a company like mine. So it's this 2-pronged approach, but it's really like looking at both of them and then coming up with like a treatment plan, if you will, of how do we address the mindset issue and how do we address like building the system so that we can like do that. The system is fairly easy to do, right? But it's the mindset work that takes the time. So it's really about like creating the reports, providing the information, and then really coaching them on their thoughts on these reports and then their thoughts on themselves and their ability to scale and grow in their business.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because that confidence, I mean, you can say, I'm not good with money, and your confidence in money is so low that it's hard to make money because you're constantly telling yourself you're not good with money. So it's like you're not attracting that money with the law of attraction, or even just the mindset of it can make it so you don't have as much sales. So I love that you start with the mindset first and not just take their bookkeeping and just do their bookkeeping, because there's a lot more to it. And then tell us, like, how do you educate someone who doesn't understand spreadsheets and like, if they really aren't like that financial savvy, like what do you do first with them?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the thing that we always do is if we have the system in place, there's always like very easy questions that one can answer, that it's like, how much money did you bring in this month? And so you have that number. Now, sometimes there's like an additional question. How much money did you forecast this month? And it's that. So then there's like, it becomes a very simple math equation. So if you thought you were going to bring in $20,000 this month and you only brought in $10,000, then like there's a $10,000 gap. Why did that, like, what was it that happened? So it could very well be, well, like this client didn't pay, this sale I thought fairly confident was going to renew. It didn't. And they start to be able to exercise it. It begins to frame the story. Again, it doesn't address like the mindset issue, but it again begins to really start to poke holes at the thought, I'm not good at money. I don't understand numbers, because you're telling the story of what's happening with the numbers in that sort of a way. And then we go from there. So it's really about like building up the confidence of like distilling what they see as like a whole spreadsheet of numbers and just isolating them and saying, what happened on the revenue side? What happened on the expense side? And can we like, and not have judgment on it. And so like, that's the other thing too, is like really coming to any sort of like financial meeting with like the like grace and love to yourself, that you are able to like do this and that you can do this. I'm not saying that it's going to be absent of negative emotion, but if you are able to come there with the openness that these numbers are neutral and it's your thoughts about them is what's driving it, then like that's where like the start of the transformation happens.
And then you talk about knowing the numbers can result in profit. So give us examples of that, because so many people are like, oh yeah, it's that, I don't need to look, or yeah, I had this expense and that. But really, when you take the time, you can analyze it, and then that transcends into profits. Show us how that happens for people and why it's important.
Sure. So, I mean, if we look at like just like a basic accounting equation, it's, revenue minus expenses equals profit, right? Now, I'm profit first certified. And if your audience or you would like to know more about that, I can give you like a quick thing. But when we decide that we're going to intentionally have a profitable business, instead of doing revenue minus expense equals profit, we do revenue minus profit equals expenses. So we've made the decision ahead of time with our prefrontal cortex that we are going to be a profitable business. And so if we just decide, okay, we are going to put 5% of our revenue aside for profit, that is that is our intention right there, then it like turns around and allows us to leave like what is left over to create and make decisions off of expenses. Now, one of the things that I think often comes up with clients is that if they are in a period of growth, sometimes they're going to be, not sometimes, there is a highly likelihood that during that growth and scale period, you're going to have losses in your business. That doesn't indicate that there's a problem. It's an indication of, I intentionally decided I was growing and scaling this business. I made a plan. This is the plan. I knew going into this, there was going to be losses. I'm not going to panic when I see a negative number at the bottom of the spreadsheet. But what I am going to do is decide, how am I going to evaluate the things that I'm doing in spirit of growth and scaling? And how do I know if it's going to be working or not? And do I need to make adjustments and pivot? And I think oftentimes that's what doesn't happen, is that there's not the intention in the relationship to review the numbers. And then it becomes like, I'm just going to be blind to it and avoid it, and then not make the adjustments that need to be made in order to create the result.
Mm-hmm. I like how you say that, because a lot of times people will look at the red and they're like, oh man, yeah, we're negative. That's horrible. Instead of looking at, oh, we put this into marketing and this into product and we did this into development and we're growing and scaling our business, which is a success, right? So I like how you start with that intention of, this is the amount we're going to make. And then what's left over for expenses, that's how much we can spend. I really like that. that view of it.
And also, I was thinking you made the point of really your business is a living, breathing entity. Like, okay, 5% has to get, like the business has to get paid. Address that, because I think a lot of people don't realize that they pull the money out and then the company doesn't have any money to grow or operate.
Yeah. So I think what often happens, and I mean, I'm talking about like small businesses, like, and in my, like where I operate in the space is I work with business owners that are generating $10 million in annual revenue. So in terms of that, I think what happens is there's this whole notion of like, I'm going to spend all this money because I need to scale and I'm in the early stages of my business. So of course I'm going to do that. And so the first thing that I always question is like, number one, is this an intentional plan? Are we really making the investments that we need to be made into it? And are we intentionally driving expenses into like a loss category in a way that like is in the spirit of growth? And if we turn around and we just decide like we are a profitable business, we are going into this. And even if you identify from like an IRS perspective as a nonprofit, you will have profit at the end, but instead of the profit going to the owners, the profit is going back into the organization to then further the mission. So either way, you want to make sure that you have the profitability on it, because what you want to do is continue to grow and scale. And if you don't want to continue to have like a debt, if you want to be intentional about how you handle your debt, and I'm not saying don't have debt, I'm saying like have an intentional relationship about your decision to go in debt, then I think that's where like all of this comes into space. But I think there's all this like very surface level like advice that's out there that's like, you know, like you need to spend a lot of money in order to make a lot of money, and you need to, and it's very like vanilla, and it's so different because every business is different. Every business has its own unique DNA. And that's largely because the person that's running the business and owning the business, they have their own unique DNA. They have their own unique experience with life experience, as well as their experience with money. So if there's somebody who likes to spend money, then chances are they're going to jump into the business with like that sort of mentality. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's like, you have to know how you relate to money in order to understand like how that could possibly carry into your business. And it may not create the results that you want from the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And tell us, you know, once you get your mindset and you kind of understand the money, like what are the next steps to grow and to succeed in that profit?
Yeah. So a lot of it comes down to like, so it's okay. So you have like a business, you have like, I work a lot with service-based businesses. So I feel like my example I can give you would be there. So let's say that your service is like, you double down on offering one specific service, right? And then you say, okay, I've got this nailed down. I've got the system. The pricing is right where it needs to be. I'm really dialed in with like what it costs for me to create this experience and create the result that my clients wish to have from me. And I'm really dialed in. So then the next thing is that do you then turn around and take that service and like create it in another sort of like vertical, if you will, like maybe your focus is with service-based providers, and then you want to do the same thing for a product-based business. Or maybe you want to do like something like in like a larger mass quantity. So it's not a one-to-one, but it's a one-to-many. But then what you're able to do then is start to get a level of sophistication of, do I need to add team? How can I create and like the team that I have, like what is their utilization of like revenue generating work, and how do I maximize and increase that? And that's sort of where like it becomes like a really sophisticated financial model for you, but one that is able to be super dialed in so that you're able to say, okay, I know that every time I bring in $10,000 in sales, I know that I am going to be at capacity with my current team, and that I need to, you know, get recruiting on as a priority so I can start hiring somebody and give myself the runway in order to get to that point, so that I don't burn my team out. I don't burn myself out. I don't compromise my quality. So it becomes a lot more of like, just like high level business decisions in order to drive all of the growth.
That's great advice. You've given us a lot of wonderful information. So do you hear all that? Now you just need to implement everything that she said.
Right. But I often see that with that, it's one of those things where I think that the stage of business that you are, there is sometimes a, I guess, enticement to like kind of like start doing things before you're ready. So it's almost like the analogy of like a baby trying to walk before it has master crawling.
Yeah.
It's like you want to be able to say, like, if I'm at this stage of my business, like these are the things that I really should be focusing on. And I use the word should very loosely, but in terms of that, like if you have gaps in your like processing your systems, those gaps are going to just magnify the larger that you get. So it's more of like, there's nothing wrong with like, like when people climb Mount Everest, they don't start from the bottom and go to the top and then like done. They like, they climb, they acclimate, they climb, they acclimate. And it's really like providing and like creating those levels where you're able to just sort of like, okay, I'm going to take inventory. I'm going to make sure that everything is aligned and ready to go, and not being in a rush and hurry for it. And I know that some of that comes with like just having a level of patience and belief. It's not to say that you can never create the financial goals that you wish to create, but it's like we're in it for, I like to invite people to be in it for the journey, not the destination. Mm-hmm. And there's no rush or hurry to the end. It's really about like what you're creating, who you become along the way.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. The journey, that's always my thing, is always experiencing what you're doing as you're going, not just looking at the future, but being present and enjoying the journey. I love that. Well, tell us, Aimee, where people can go to find more information about you and to hire you as a virtual CFO.
Sure. So if you go to my website, myvirtualcfo.co, that's where I am in the land of the internet. And I'm also on Instagram at myvirtualcfo. And you can find out how to work with me one-on-one, or I am in the process of launching a group program called the Finance Edit. If that's something that aligns with you, you can go to the website and find out more about that too.
Great. Thanks, Aimee. We really appreciate you coming on today. Remember to subscribe to our podcast. We'd love to hear from you and share it with other people. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.